You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
No longer do we have to lead in episodes with me saying, hey, baseball's getting close, because baseball's here. It's here.
It is at the door. It is knocking. You can let it in now. It's fine.
It's knocking.
Being very polite.
My dog,
Let baseball in.
just tried to knock in a way in which she would know it wasn't actually the door, and she didn't go running to the door, but she is looking at me like, well, what was that? What was that all about?
Are you going to do something about this?
That was just baseball knocking. Like, don't worry. It was just baseball knocking at our collective door. She laid her head back down. She doesn't care. Hi, welcome inside. It's episode number 147 of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Mon. Sam Dykstra is my co-host and good pal. Hi, Sam.
Oh, I don't know if we've ever introduced ourselves that way.
It's Valentine's Day, buddy.
It is Valentine's Day.
Love is in the air.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, Tyler.
Blah, blah, blah,
my good
blah,
friend,
blah,
Tyler.
blah, blah. Let's, we're actually going to talk in a little while about what we have planned for Valentine's Day, so I'm not going to ask you what you have planned for Valentine's Day.
I was going to say, that's also a terrible tease. You make it out like we're going to go deep on our discussion.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like a 2-second thing. It's like yesterday, there was a big Twitter exploded yesterday morning because apparently on Ellen, she asked Jerry Seinfeld, is there a chance that Seinfeld could be rebooted at some point because there are no unique ideas in television at all anymore, and every network executive everywhere is like, what shows did we run in the 90s? Why don't we just do those again? And Jerry said, it's possible. So I watched Ellen, that interview yesterday, to see how he elaborated on that. Literally, she asked him the question. He goes, it's possible. Everybody freaks out cheering, and then there's a really awkward edit point, and the interview just ends. Like, they didn't allow. And I'm sure, like, everything that I've ever known about Jerry Seinfeld, I'm sure he continued by saying, it's possible, but yeah, it's not going to happen. And they just cut that out. Undoubtedly. I have no doubt.
See, I'd rather think he just laid out 4 seasons of plot.
It's possible, and here's how it's going down.
Saying, like, you're not allowed to do that. You have to keep these things under wraps.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Come to my version of the world. It's more fun.
Yeah, I know. Mine is very much not. So with that, episode 147 underway. Thanks for tuning in to the Show Before the Show, wherever you found us, on iTunes, on Google Play, on the Stitcher app, at MILB.com/podcast. Thanks for tuning in. You can be our Valentines today, but only if you give us a 5-star rating and review and subscription.
And can prove it.
Because
we're those types of people that need our love proved.
We need petty love validation.
Yes.
Is what we need. It's the way of the world these days. So let's get started on episode number 147. Spring training underway almost everywhere across Florida and Arizona. Official report days late for a couple of teams. I think the Washington Nationals are last or among the last coming up on Friday, the 16th, but recording on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Whole bunch of teams reporting today as they have been first couple of days of this week. And, if you are headed out to spring training, we are here to serve. Sam is going down to Florida. Josh Jackson and I will be headed to Arizona. We booked our place. I booked a rental car today. Sam's got his stuff all sorted out. It's getting very close, so we're going to get things started with a couple of things spring training related. Strike one this week, Sam. If you are headed to spring training, which you are, what prospect's batting practice would you most like to see?
Yeah, we kind of frame it this way because a lot of people usually reach out to us every spring and say, hey, listen, I'm going down to Florida. I'm going down to Arizona. Where should I go? What should I do while I'm around? So kind of in that vein, we'll do this first one on batters and we'll do the second one on pitchers. And these are kind of guys we're excited to see when we're down there in our respective places, although some of these guys I'm going to be laying out are more for Josh and Tyler, which is wholly unfair. But when it comes to batting practice, I think you got to start with Eloy Jimenez, which, Tyler, if you don't get to see Eloy Jimenez batting practice while you're in Arizona, I'm going to be very upset with you. We need that on the site. We need video of it. We need Hemingway-esque descriptions, the whole thing. Jimenez.
I'm gonna leave the descriptions up to Josh because he's an actual good writer.
There you go. You can narrate it. How about that?
Okay, that works.
You can use his words. You can use your voice, and it'll be a lovely MILB.com production.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Eloy, this is going to be his first spring with the White Sox. 6'4", 205 pounds, built like a house, has the power to kind of back it up. I think it was in the Carolina League All-Star game last year, or Carolina League Home Run Derby. Literally hit a light pole and had it shatter. Made for awesome video. That should be up on the site, I believe. And he just has that threat to do that, wherever he's playing. I know during the Futures game when I was down there, he had one of the bigger crowds. Everybody wanted to see exactly how he was going to do. So put him, he's going to be in Major League camp. He's going to be with the White Sox. He has kind of a 2018 ETA, going to try to be pushing for that club, trying to show off as much as he can. He might have the best power of anybody in that group. Put him up with Jose Abreu, I guess, amongst White Sox sluggers. But I would love to see what he can do now, first spring, trying to impress the new guys. That would be a lot of fun. Kind of in that same vein, Tyler O'Neill is going to be spending his first spring with the Cardinals. And O'Neill has a much better chance at breaking camp with the Cardinals. But again, longtime listeners of the show have heard us talk about him and his biceps, his Canadian biceps, just how big they are, how powerful they are. He finished last year at AAA Memphis. His last game was the AAA National Championship game. Had some struggles at the beginning of the year, got traded from the Mariners to the Cardinals, finished up the year at Memphis, got better as the season went on. He still doesn't have that great of a hit tool, but when he connects, he can really put on a show. So he's kind of in that discussion for a 4th, 5th outfield spot with St. Louis. He's on the 40-man now. He's in that kind of mix with Harrison Bader. Their outfield is pretty well set up as things are right now between Tommy Pham, Dexter Fowler, and Marcell Ozuna. But they do need a 4th outfield spot. Can O'Neill do enough? Is his power enough to kind of break into that mold there? His trick is power. So his batting practice is going to be fun no matter what. Is he going to use that as an opportunity to show off in this first spring with that club? I'll throw out one other name that isn't necessarily powerful. When you think of batting practice, we think of power. You want to see it turn into a home run derby, if you're a fan, especially. But Keston Hiura, he'll be at Brewers camp this year, first-round pick last year, played mostly DH duty, part-time second baseman because of an elbow issue he had coming out of college, but might have the best, or one of the best, if not the best, hit tool in the minors already. He hasn't even played, a full season of minor league ball yet. A lot is expected out of him. And I love seeing guys who have good hit tools work. They're going to be trying to send the ball to left field. Then they're going to start working on sending it to right field. Then they're going to start working on hitting it up the middle. Those are real hitting clinics. So if you want to see a real hitting technician go to work, Hiura is kind of your best shot at seeing that happen. You're not going to see 450 feet blasts or anything like that. But if you want to see somebody really hone their craft, that's where you do it. So Hiura at Brewers camp is kind of that third person I would throw in that mix. He's another guy. He's going to be in Arizona. He's not going to be in Florida. O'Neill's the only one in Florida that I'm going to be able to see. But Cardinals camp is definitely on my list that I solidified this week, and we'll get more into that the closer we get to my trip. But, yeah, very excited to see those 3 this spring.
Man, those are good ones. I'm going to throw in one with our standard disclaimer. Shohei Ohtani, not going to be a prospect for long, but man, BP sessions don't get much cooler than Shohei Ohtani, who literally once broke the roof of the Tokyo Dome with a ball that he hit. Vlad Guerrero Jr. to me is a big one who I'm not going to get a chance to see, but Sam probably will over in the Grapefruit League. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good mix. I also think the most exciting thing to watch in batting practice, obviously, are power prospects, but when you see guys who are just good hitters in batting practice, that's as fun as anything else. I mean, if you go out and watch a guy who just knows how to put the ball anywhere off of his bat and can angle and hit and do the things that you want to see, just a very solid top to bottom profile hitter do, those are fun, and they're not nearly as sexy to watch as a guy who can break light towers or roofs, but they're fun. And in a lot of ways, they're more difficult to even understand. You kind of see a guy who's just cranking balls out of a yard in batting practice because of his power, and you think like, all right, well, that figures. But if you just watch somebody who can spray line drives all over the place, can kind of do with a swing what he wants to do with a swing, that's almost more impressive than watching somebody who just blisters a ball with power. So don't sleep on those guys, because those guys are a lot of fun to watch too. So if you get a chance to go out and watch somebody like Nick Senzel, who's got a 70 grade hit tool in Cincinnati, which is something that I'm hoping to do when I go to Reds camp, those guys are they can be a whole lot of fun. Gleyber Torres, same way over in the Grapefruit League.
Right, and one thing I would add with those guys is that usually I think fans kind of watch where the ball ends up. That's kind of what they're focused on.
Right.
And we both brought that up. Seeing them spray it all over the field can be a lot of fun. But watch the stance. Watch what goes into that. Go watch their mechanics and see what they're playing with too. Batting practice is a time to try some new things. Try a higher leg lift. Try no leg lift. Try whatever. These guys are going to be working on a whole bunch of different things. So don't just look at the outfield and think like, oh, Eloy Jimenez hit that, way out to left center. Look at what he did to get there, and what is changing from swing to swing, what he's trying to do when he is trying to go opposite field. You can learn as much there as you can by the output of the ball.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really good way to put it. And it's an art form. I mean, it's when you're hitting, even in batting practice, I think you can tell a lot about guys based on just what they're able to do against somebody who's, lobbing stuff up to them. If you do get a chance to go watch, inter squad stuff or, live BP sessions in which hitters are swinging against live pitching, that's fun too, because it's a more controlled environment than an actual game setting. But still, you're getting to see what guys can do against a pitcher who's trying to not just lob meatballs in there. Spring training is so much fun because you get to see so many different angles of all this. And the flip side of that question is strike two. What prospect, bullpen or spring training outing would you most want to see, Sam?
So one of the guys, both of these guys that I picked made news kind of this week. The first, again, I'm going to go back to Cardinals camp in Jupiter, Palm Beach, whatever you want to call that area, Roger Dean Stadium, more or less, is Alex Reyes. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery, basically had Tommy John surgery almost 12 months ago. So he's coming back from that. There's a lot of questions right now in Cardinals camp, which is a lot of fun. This makes for an interesting storyline to follow. What are they going to do with him? They're expecting him to really crank things up by May 1st. So he's only doing a couple of things now, but this week he started throwing 40 fastballs. Isn't working on the breaking stuff yet, but they feel comfortable enough with him to throw 40 pitches like a normal routine, which is a lot of fun and good to see from him, especially as a guy who has top velocity. To let him just kind of go for it at this point in his recovery and his rehab is good. But yeah, what they're going to do with him, how they're going to kind of ease him in, how he's looking. They're talking about either using him as a major league reliever right away or potentially sending him back to Memphis to work as a starter. This might sound selfish being a minor league writer. I would like to see him back in Memphis. I think he has enough pitches to be a starter. I want to see him make the most of that. I don't feel like starting him as a reliever and kind of, maybe tacking on innings as it goes along. That might seem good for his health, but that might, not work exactly in terms of him being a fully fledged starter by July or something like that. It's not easy to make that transition necessarily in the middle of the season. But yeah, just kind of see where he's at. If you're a Cardinals fan, you probably are going to be doing this anyways. But see, when they start mixing in breaking pitches with him, how many they're letting him go on a day-to-day basis. When I'm there, I'll try to get updates on him. We know Cardinals reporters are staying on that story as much as they can. So going to be really interesting to do some health checks on Reyes as the spring goes along. The other one is Justice Sheffield, who I think this week I saw a quote from him that said he feels like he can pitch in the major leagues right now. And some of the reports we were getting out of him in the Arizona Fall League, increased velocity, some good breaking pitches, kind of speaks to that. He hasn't yet pitched at AAA. He finished last year at AA Trenton, had some health worries, but what is he going to do to back that up this spring? Yankees camp is already loaded, and it's already loaded with young talent, and I don't think there's that much doubt that the Yankees rotation is already pretty much set 1 through 5. But he's going to get a chance. Speaking of chance, Chance Adams is going to get a chance. What are they going to do with that opportunity? Sheffield is going to be in that mix at AAA Scranton probably to start the year. This is his chance to show the Yankees, listen, I think I'm ready now. If you want to bring me up on May 1st, that'd be great. So, with that confidence that he obviously got from the Fall League and his performance there, how is that going to translate into Grapefruit League games? How is that going to translate into stuff in his bullpens? I'm going to be fascinated to watch that. But to see that confidence in him is really fun and exciting, and I really want to see how that's going to play out here in the next couple of weeks.
I got a couple of selfish answers because they're in the Cactus League and some guys that I'll be really excited to watch. But one of them is left-hander Adrian Morejon, who's in the San Diego Padres organization, and I saw him last year throw a live BP session at Padres camp in Peoria, and it was like everybody shut down whatever they were doing to go watch Adrian Morejon. He made it to the Class A Midwest League last year at 18 years old. He's got really good stuff and almost a bizarre array of stuff. He's got a fastball, he's got a curveball, he's got a changeup. He actually has two changeups. He's got a standard changeup and then kind of a knuckle changeup that he throws that's so weird that the Padres kind of had to figure out whether or not anybody could coach him on it. And Bert Hooton, who was the pitching coach at Class A Fort Wayne last year, sort of threw something similar in his career, so he's worked with Adrian Morejon on it, but Morejon just has so many different things that he can do on the mound. He's a really, really intriguing prospect to watch. He's also 6 foot 165 and touches 96 miles an hour. So the type of guy who kind of makes you feel like all things are possible, and those are some of my favorite baseball players. Kind of the antithesis of him in being a left-hander is A.J. Puck of the Oakland Athletics organization. I don't think that it's enough to say, I think it's too much to say that people are sleeping on A.J. Puck, but I don't think A.J. Puck has yet broken into that elite level of prospects the way people view a lot of other arms that are higher up on the list. He is, going into 2018, the second-ranked left-handed pitching prospect according to MLB Pipeline, but doesn't feel like yet he's in the same area of the conversation as a Forrest Whitley or Michael Kopech or Brent Honeywell, those guys all being right-handers. Mackenzie Gore is the only lefty who is ranked above him, also in the Padres organization, so while watching Morejon, hopefully I'll get a chance to see Mackenzie Gore as well. But A.J. Puck's numbers last year, pitched in 27 combined games, 24 of them were starts between Class A Advanced Stockton and AA Midland. He struck out 184 batters in 125 innings. And he only walked 48. 184 batters in 125 innings. And it's not like this is a kid who just jumped out of Florida, the 6th overall pick in 2016, and went to Tri-City in the Northwest League and was just dominating for the Dust Devils. This is, or I guess I should probably use an A's affiliate since we're not talking about the Padres
Vermont
anymore.
Lake Monsters, sir.
Didn't go to the Vermont Lake Monsters in the New York Penn League, which he did and dominated there. But last year did not just go there and dominate lower level competition. Yes, in his first season, his debut campaign, that's where he headed. But last year, he's doing this against upper minor league competition in AA. The ERA jumped up a little bit. It was 4.36 compared to 3.69 where he was at Class A Advanced in the California League. But still, 86 strikeouts in 64 innings in AA. In his very first taste of AA and 13 starts there. A.J. Puck is tremendously talented, a lot of fun to watch, and I'm going to be excited to get a chance to get a look at him.
Yeah, and he's a lot of fun to watch, even if you don't know exactly what you're watching for. He's kind of like the perfect fan bullpen to watch. Yeah. Because he's just huge.
Right.
He's massive. The Randy Johnson comps only come from size. I mean, he's not necessarily as overbearing quite yet. I'm not putting that on him. But if you want to watch somebody and just feel like I would be scared to be within 10 feet of him,
right,
or 10 feet of the batter's box. Thank God I'm behind this protective netting. That he's one of those guys to do that with. And, I remember talking to him in the fall for a story I did on FIP, Fielding Independent Pitching. He talked about how, he thought the biggest improvements he made was on the secondary stuff, was on the breaking stuff, was on the changeup. So that's stuff he's going to be tinkering with even more this spring. So yeah, I would love to get some AJ Puck time in. I'm jealous of you guys if you get to see him down there in Arizona.
Strike 3, Sam. Take it away.
Yeah, we're going to
actually jump right in.
I know, yeah. We're going to be throwing this back to you. It is Winter Olympics time, and we are a sports podcast, so we have to talk about the Winter Olympics in some way. But we do have a very obvious connection. I know he's somebody both you and I have talked to. You had the most recent story up that I thought was really good and did really well on the site as well. People were very interested in this. A prospect in the White Sox system, Eddie Alvarez, who has reached as high as AAA Charlotte, was a silver medalist in the Winter Games 4 years ago. Now he's trying to work his way up that White Sox system. Tyler, what did you learn from talking to him? What is it kind of like for him, watching the games now as a different type of athlete? And what are his kind of expectations going into 2018?
Yeah, it was really cool. Like you said, we've talked to Eddie before for the site. We've even talked to him about, being a two-sport athlete before for the site. But being that it is the Winter Olympics now, we hadn't checked in with him for a little while. And the fact that he reached AAA last year, in addition to reaching AAA at the end of 2016, he's a step below the major leagues. And this is a guy who was at the pinnacle of his sport 4 years ago with speed skating, and now has a chance, a fairly legitimate chance, to make it to the pinnacle of this sport and be a Major League Baseball player in 2018. And it was really neat. The thing that I was most fascinated about with Eddie is the amount of time that he spent, I don't want to say regretful, but certainly mindful of the fact that had he been able to dedicate himself 100% to one thing or the other, he's probably either, a gold medalist at this stage in the Olympics, or he's a major leaguer on the other side if he had dedicated himself full-time to baseball. The overriding lesson of his story is he waited for a while to get knee surgery, and he ended up having torn, which is almost mind-boggling, but he tore both patellar tendons on each knee, and after playing baseball in 2011, his 1 year of college baseball, finally had an operation on those to have them repaired in early 2012. By the end of 2013 and into 2014, he was qualifying for the Olympics, and then in Sochi, he goes out and wins silver in the 5,000-meter short track speed skating relay. So his lesson, I said, what's the thing that you would tell 18-year-old Eddie Alvarez if you could go back and talk to yourself when you were coming out of high school? And he said the first thing I tell him is get knee surgery earlier, because Eddie was a speed skater, graduated high school, moved to Salt Lake City to try to make the 2010 U.S. Winter Olympics team for speed skating. Didn't make it, had felt knee pain, and decided, you know what, I'm going to give myself a break, go play some college baseball, see what I can do to get my knees healthy. They never got healthy, and so he finally threw himself into the surgery. He was already 21 years old at that point. So it was interesting because I think the juxtaposition of those two things of like, if I dedicated myself all to this one thing or all to this other thing, I could have been one of the all-time greats at it. And just the luxury of being that good at two elite sports that you could say, man, I could have really been great at one of these. Eddie's going to be great at both of them. He's got an Olympic silver medal. He's got a chance to make the major leagues. Like, that's incredible. But having the drive that somebody like that has, I think there is always going to be something that sticks in the back of your mind to think, what if I would have done it one way or done it the other? How good could I have been? He's still going to be great at both and already is great at both. But that was really interesting about the whole thing to me. So I think it's difficult. He said it's bittersweet watching the Olympics now, and his event is coming up on Saturday, the 5,000-meter relay. And, one of the guys who was on his team in 2014, Jay Arcelski, is going to be on that same relay group. And they actually set a world record in qualifying for the Olympics this year in the 5,000-meter relay. So there's a very good chance they medal again. And yeah, that would probably be really difficult. But at the same time, Eddie's going to be going to spring training. Nobody else that he was speed skating with is going to spring training to play professional baseball. So it's a pretty cool story. And he is a really bright, really infectious, really easy guy to talk to and an easy guy to cheer for. And it was fun to catch up with him.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you might be kicking himself, but you hear a lot about Olympic medalists and, their career ends and that's kind of it.
Right.
You become a coach in what you were doing before, or you go on and you work in some other field or, whatever. For him to move on to do something else athletically
right.
is nuts.
Incredible.
Yeah. And, I have a lot of respect for people who do that.
And such divergent sports, too. I mean, it's not like, he was a baseball player and then he tried to play cricket. Like, the right. difference in the sports is amazing. And I read an interview that he gave, I think to the Miami Herald, but he was talking about how when he first started watching film of himself as a base runner, he said, everything that you could do wrong in base running, I did. Because as speed skaters, I think the way he termed it was when they come off the line, you kind of look like an awkward duckling. Like your legs are flailing all over the place because you're just trying to get that traction in order to start pushing yourself into the rhythm of a race. Whereas in baseball, you really have to take 1-2 steps and be in that fluid line to the next base, especially if you're going to be a base stealer. And right. that was fascinating. I mean, the transition between those two teams, it's not easy. It's not like there's a lot of muscle memory that carries over from speed skating to baseball. That's one of the things that blew my mind about it.
Right, just picking up a bat, and he hit 240 last year for AAA Charlotte, so it's not like he's a greatest hitter, but still, like You and I aren't hitting 240.
Right, exactly.
You and I
Throw
aren't
me into
hitting
a
240
professional
in the
baseball
GCL.
game. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, this is a guy who played 1 year of baseball after graduating high school. Graduated high school in 2008. He played 1 year of baseball in 2011 in college at Salt Lake Community College, in which he was an all-conference player. It's in the NJCAA, the National Junior College Athletic Association. But he was an all-conference player for Salt Lake. And then 3 years later, hasn't played baseball since 2011, gets back from the World Championships following the Sochi Olympics and says, all right, I'm baseball full-time, gets signed by the White Sox in June, and 2 years after that, he's in AAA. Finishes the 2016 season in AAA. It's pretty incredible. Even if he never makes the major leagues, it's an incredible transition story. And the fact that somebody is able to do that and the athleticism that takes, the mental aptitude that takes is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and the dedication too.
Right.
To turn into that, to put something aside like that and go at it full time is, we don't root for athletes that often, but I would love to see him, make his debut at some point in 2018 or 2019 coming up. That would be a lot of fun.
So Winter Olympics, just continuing that thought for a foul ball this week, if there was a prospect who you could put in the Winter Olympics, Sam, and watch them on an event, what prospect would make the best Winter Olympian?
Yeah, so I've got 2, and I wish I had a little bit more fun with these. I might have taken it too seriously, which is kind of silly to say because this is completely made up on our end. But, if Eddie Alvarez is going to be a really, really good short track speed skater, I really, really want to see Jorge Mateo as a short track speed skater.
Okay.
I don't know how he would do on the turns. If you ever watch that, it's like NASCAR on ice. That's what they say every night on NBC. You're just getting in line with people and all that, and you're trying to figure out all that. I just want to see Jorge Mateo go on skates, go on a really slick surface and how fast he can go. That would be really, really cool. The other one I have is, figure skating's been on a lot. That's the way it works. And in order to make figure skating work, you have to have really, really good footwork. And I was trying to think who has like the best footwork of somebody I know in the minors. I immediately thought, well, what position needs really good footwork? Okay, shortstop. Who might be the best defensive shortstop prospect I know? J.P. Crawford. I would love to see J.P. Crawford as a figure skater.
Okay.
Give him like 2 years to train. I'm sure the Phillies wouldn't be that happy with that. I'm sure a lot of Phillies fans are turning off the podcast now saying, no, we just traded Freddie Galvis.
Don't suggest this, Sam.
Yeah, don't move him to another sport.
Right.
But J.P. Crawford using that kind of elegance at short, he makes things look so easy there. At times, like too easy. To see that translate on the ice would be really cool. I wish I could come up with somebody that I would think it would be like a really good skeleton racer, I guess is the term. But I don't know exactly how. Skeletor. Yeah, there we go. how that all weighs. So I'll stick with the stuff that I feel like translates at least semi well. So those are my 2 picks.
I got one and one only, Sam. Dan Vogelbach curling. That's all I got. That's all I got for you. Dan Vogelbach just has the look of the world's greatest curler.
Yeah, I would need him to have more of a mustache to match. And I wish I knew the guy's name. He's just Curling Mario in my mind.
Yeah, the dude whose sister Hamilton is their last name. I can't remember his first name now. But yeah, he and his sister were doing the mixed doubles curling. And the stash is incredible.
The stash was incredible.
I bet Dan Vogelbach, he could probably grow a pretty mean stash, I would think.
I would think so.
Let's suggest that to Dan.
He just had the big red hat too. It was wonderful.
Yeah, he had the whole thing going on. So that's it. Dan Vogelbach, America's next curling star, Dan Vogelbach. You're welcome, USA Curling. I got you all covered. So that'll do it for this week's sort of Winter Olympic themed edition of Three Strikes, and we're headed to spring training next. Try to contain your excitement, but we're really actually headed to spring training next. The Milwaukee Brewers organization and Corbin Burnes, right-handed pitcher who finished last year with AA Biloxi in the Southern League, joins the show from spring training. Coming up next. Pitchers and catchers reporting all across the world of Major and Minor League Baseball as we head into the middle of February in 2018. And we are joined by the 5th-ranked prospect in the Milwaukee Brewers organization coming out of 2017, and that is right-handed pitcher Corbin Burnes, who joins us from Maryvale, Arizona, or I would assume at least close to Maryvale. Corbin, what's going on? How are you?
Not much. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. Thanks a ton for doing this. So give us the rundown of the last just handful of days for you. I mean, when it gets to this final run up to actually reporting, you're not too far away being a Bakersfield, California native, but what have the last few weeks been like for you getting ready to head to spring training?
Yeah, so just just been getting everything packed up, getting ready to get on the road. But I've been here for about a week now. Just kind of getting my feet underneath me here. Getting in the weight room, getting out throwing a couple bullpens. So just getting acclimated here in Arizona and just excited to get going.
Being a non-roster invitee to big league camp this year, what's the biggest difference from seasons past? Being you were a draft selection in 2016, there's not a ton of these that you've gone through, obviously, but compare this with last year and what it's been like so far for you.
Right. So this is just my second spring training. But I approached it, the same way as I did last spring training. Worked hard all off season, getting the body in shape after a season, getting rested, getting back into shape, get the arm going, get off the mound, just slowly start working back things into it. So, for me, I've, approached it as the same I would if I was going to minor league camp. And, this year it's just a different group of guys at a different level.
Corbin, so many people, kind of count down to this, especially once the Super Bowl is behind everybody and you know that the next thing on the sports calendar, as far as a big event goes is when pitchers and catchers report. And for, those of us who live in cold weather states, this is like the first sign that, oh yeah, eventually things are going to turn around and the sun will shine in summer again. But the excitement that we feel on the fan side, what does it feel like for you guys? I mean, the first time that you put everything on, get out there for, an official workout or an official, bullpen session or whatever it is, what are the emotions like? What is the sensation like for you guys?
No, it's definitely exciting. You'll probably hear it all over the place. Some guys say, long off season, this and that. Just you're excited to get back. But for me, it's just you put all the work in the off season, working out, getting stronger, getting the arm in shape. That once you finally get here, it kind of comes full swing, and it's like, okay, now I kind of get to apply everything I've been working on, since last year and this last off season. So it's, it's definitely exciting, and, to lace those, the spikes back up and put the glove on. But, it's a great feeling to get back out there and, play and catch all the guys.
Yeah, and when you mention working on things this offseason, I mean, you're coming off a season in which you posted a 1.67 ERA, a 0.95 WHIP. It's about as successful as a first full season as you can get. What were you kind of working on this offseason to make even that next jump for you?
Yeah, so basically what I worked on last season, that I picked up last spring training, it's just trying to keep, refining the mechanics, make things repeatable, make things consistent. Working on the off-speed pitches, the changeup, curveball, slider. You can never stop getting better. So for me, it was just try to keep hammering the mechanics that I worked on last year, just to try to keep being more and more consistent, and continue to work on the breaking stuff. You can never get too good at all that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the mechanics, because some of the stuff I've read about you and heard about you from other people, is that the mechanics did get a lot cleaner last year, and that helped certainly with your control. You only walked 36 guys in 145 2/3 innings. What steps do you feel like you made last year, and what were you able to kind of take into the offseason to continue with those tweaks?
Yeah, so the focus beginning of last year was to, obviously to cut down the walks, fill up the zone more, throw a lot more strikes. And last year in spring training, we made a slight delivery change, just basically in the windup to help with some timing and some arm flow stuff. And since the first day I did it, it kind of clicked and was able to build off it all season. Took those same results I got at the end of last year, continue to work on them through the off season, and that's going to be the same stuff I'm working on here this spring training. Is just trying to be more and more consistent with getting the arm up. Keeping the front side closed, and just keep hammering things over and over again, and it should help to even reduce the the walks and have the better control even this year.
And you mentioned your breaking pitches as well, between the slider and the curveball. Depending on who you talk to, some people say you have a better curveball, some people say you have a better slider. Where do you feel like the development of those two pitches are, and what do you feel like you still have to need to do with those, two breaking offerings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the slider is something that I've thrown for a while, threw that in college, and continue to throw it into into pro ball, and the curveball is something I didn't use much in college. It's something that I've more used a lot more in pro ball, and I've been able to talk to a lot of different coaches, a lot of different players, just to kind of keep on picking up tips, with both actually the curveball and the slider. And I'm happy with the development I've had of the curveball, the last couple of years, and it's something I worked hard on again this off season. So you're definitely excited to get things going in camp, and to keep spinning those, keep working on them, and just trying to get more and more consistent with them.
Corbin, being on the big league side for camp this year, who are some of the guys that you're most excited to work alongside, as far as other pitchers go or pitching coaches go, and some of the catchers that you're most excited to work with? You guys get such a wide range of that in big league camp, and you get exposed to so many things that on the minor league side maybe you don't get to see. What excites you about that this year?
Right. So I've been here for a week now, and there's been a couple of big league guys over there as well. So I've been been fortunate enough to kind of be around Oliver Drake. He comes out of the bullpen, and Chase Anderson, being able to play catch with him the last couple of days, and just kind of picking their brains, different pitches. Just always trying to learn something every day. Was able to throw a couple of bullpens with Stephen Vogt, and he's been a big presence, veteran guy in the clubhouse, and he knows his stuff. So it's good, throw a couple of pins to him and see what he has to say, different things. And obviously today getting into camps, seeing all the coaches, just getting in front of all those eyes. It's really exciting, and can't wait to continue to kind of pick all those guys' brains and see how camp goes.
When you get to game action here in the next couple of weeks, there are the opportunities. You're going to be pitching in big league games against some big names and stuff. As far as Cactus League guys go, maybe even somebody that you might not get a chance to face or something like that, but is there anybody that you would just love to see, of the teams that are down there in the Cactus League, somebody on the major league side or the minor league side, somebody that you'd love to test yourself against in another lineup?
Yeah, so I grew up in California, so I grew up an Angels fan. So they're not too far away in Tempe, so it'd be cool to to pitch against some of those guys that I grew up watching, and also to see some of the guys that I grew up coming playing with through college and early on in pro ball. Some of the guys that are just getting into big league camp the first time as well. So it'd be cool to face those guys and just see those guys again.
Okay, let's say you get thrown into a one-batter situation against the Angels, and you get to go against either Trout or Ohtani. Who are you picking?
I'm picking Trout.
Okay. I mean, it figures, being the guy who's been around for longer, and obviously you've watched him forever. Okay.
And arguably the best player in the game.
Right,
yeah. I think that's
I grew up watching him, so that'd be exciting.
All right, well, I kind of want to get into a technical question of how do you find out about getting invited to big league camp, coming off the year that you did, ending at AA, getting at
I like to assume they mail you an actual invitation, like it's like a
you would
party,
hope so, yeah.
and they just mail you a card and you have to fill out like whether or not you're attending like a wedding.
Yeah, and whether you want the beef or the chicken. But is that like
No.
Is that something you're talking about or even thinking about at the end of the year, or how does that kind of process work out?
No, so for me at the end of the year, it's just kind of like, hey, the season's over. Let's kind of relax, let the body heal. I had an exciting off season. Was able to go to a couple of cool events. Was able to go to the rookie career development program. Was able to go to Fan Fest, and so for me the off season was pretty cool. Just getting those invitations, and then of course the last thing was getting the phone call about being invited to big league camp, and then then they send you all the logistics. But they reached out to me with a phone call, and we're excited having you in camp. So that was pretty cool.
And kind of looking forward to 2018, like I said, you finished the year at AA. Doesn't seem like you have a heck of a lot to prove there, but the idea of the jump to AAA, usually that's daunting no matter what. But the idea of maybe pitching in Colorado Springs and the Pacific Coast League in general for a pitcher, that's obviously kind of far from ideal. What are you kind of looking forward to about that, or how much are you guys talking about, pitching in that atmosphere, whether it's the PCL, as a whole, or it's Colorado Springs specifically?
No, so for me, I try not, to address, certain levels, certain atmosphere. For me, it's, you're out there playing the game of baseball. You're out there having fun. I'm going to go and approach every start as if, I was in AA, AAA, A-ball, big leagues. For me, I have a pretty set routine I stick to. So, as long as I prepare, the way I should prepare that the week up, the 3 or 4 days up to that start, I feel like that it doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm going to go out and, pitch my game and attack hitters how I usually do.
And just one last one for me. We talked about how this spring training might be a little different because you're in big league camp from last year, but I would imagine Brewers camp itself is going to be completely different this year, coming off the year that the major league club did. Is that something you can kind of sense in the week you've been there, is that, this is a team, it added Lorenzo Cain, it added Christian Yelich. As an organization, this is a real contending organization now as opposed to a rebuilding one like last year. Is that something that's palpable in camp yet?
Yeah, it's definitely exciting. You see the guys walking around. Good morale in the clubhouse. Today obviously was the first day of the big league side, but to see guys coming in, see everyone excited. Everyone's excited to be back. Everyone, talking to a couple of guys. They're all looking forward to the season. With the different acquisitions and a good year last year. There's definitely a lot of good talk around around both the minor league side and the big league side. The excitement to come this year. So we're all hoping for a big year, and we're excited to get going.
All right, Corbin, last one for you. And this, for everybody listening, if you want to feel super old, Corbin was born the same year that Major League 2 came out. So 5 years before Corbin was born, Major League 1 came out. But Corbin's name, Corbin Burnes. Corbin Burnson, the actor, played Roger Dorn in Major League. And like minor league fans get a little inventive with heckling. Has anybody ever heckled you with a Corbin Burnson / Major League / Roger Dorn related thing?
No, actually, I haven't heard that one
okay,
yet. So
good. I'm not trying to give anybody ideas.
I'm sure it's coming. No, I'm sure it's coming.
You can blame it on us. From now on, I'll be like, oh, the minor league podcast.
Yep, exactly.
This is unbelievable. Corbin Burnes of the Milwaukee Brewers organization last year with AA Biloxi and Class A Advanced Carolina, a 1.67 combined ERA over 26 starts, 145 and 2/3 innings, and a lot of big stuff ahead in 2018. And congrats on the big league camp invite, man. Best of luck in 2018. I'm sure we'll be talking to you down the line.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it for having me on.
Well, last week we were not graced with the presence of Benjamin Hill on the podcast because Ben was actually at a ballpark, which is not normally a February activity, but was pitching in to help a promo schedule unveiling. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Tyler, and hello, Sam.
Hello, Ben.
You got to be kind of the guest of honor for the Hartford Yard Goats last week.
Yeah, I did. I was invited to Dunkin' Donuts Park, the home of the Hartford Yard Goats, to moderate a panel discussion related to the release of their promo schedule. And since I'd never quite gotten an invite like that, and I'm going a little stir-crazy in February, I took them up on it and lended my industry expertise to the proceedings. And so I was on hand as the team kind of went through their promo schedule, and I kind of helped moderate the discussion, as I said, from topic to topic. And we got to see such things as the Goat Yoga bobblehead that was unveiled, which is literally a man in a baseball uniform, in a Yard Goats uniform, doing yoga with a goat on top of him. And that's a reference to the fact that the Yard Goats actually have goat yoga sessions in the batting cages. So not during the games, but they have like off-season and goat yoga sessions, and now they're immortalizing that with a bobblehead. So I'm sure there's never been a goat yoga bobblehead before. For What If Night, the team is becoming the Hartford Whirlybirds, which is one of the finalists in the Name the Team contest. Last year, the team was the Praying Mantis for What If Night. This year, they're the Whirlybirds, and there will be a full-time Whirlybird mascot at Yard Goats games this year, not just for the night they become the Whirlybirds, but all season long. And that mascot, I don't know what the terminology has, but he has eyes that will like move around in his his pupils will bounce around.
Oh, so he has like jiggly eyes.
Yeah, he's got jiggly eyes. So that's a minor league baseball, if not a first, a rarity at the very least. And of course, most notably, because everyone obsesses over food, Hartford is the latest team to jump in with the alternate food identity night, and they're going to be the steamed cheeseburgers for one night only. I believe when is that, in August? August 12th. And, steamed cheeseburgers are they're believed to be invented in Connecticut, and Ted's Restaurant, a famous steamed cheeseburger restaurant, will be on hand at the ballpark that night. And today the Yard Goats unveiled their steamed cheeseburgers caps, which set the internet aflutter. They are quite remarkable. So go online and check those out if my word descriptions are not really cutting it, which I don't think they are.
They look
honestly.
Exactly like what a cheeseburger hat should look like, which is strange for like milled stuff because I don't think I've ever seen. Obviously, like the tacos have like the taco is on the hat, but this looks like an actual cheeseburger the whole way around.
It does. It's got the layers of condiments and a bun color on both the top and bottom. So good work by the Yard Goats on steamed cheeseburgers.
Has anybody made a well, first of all, Montgomery did something similar to that last year, right? They had a biscuit hat that was kind of similar.
That's true.
But I don't think anybody has made a Principal Skinner steamed hams joke about it being an Albany expression. I don't know why Hartford is doing the steamed cheeseburgers thing.
We'll get to that moment eventually.
Okay, good.
I feel like all of Twitter already made that
That's
joke.
an Albany expression.
Yes.
Yes.
The Aurora Borealis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sorry, Sam.
But anyhow, I was in Hartford. That explains my absence on last week's podcast. You can check out the blog to see a recap of the event I attended and get caught up to date on the Yard Goats promos. And, there'll be much more where that came from. I might not be moderating panel discussions related to team promo schedule releases, but I, of course, will continue to cover them.
Ben, there was a story that went up on the blog as well that you said you didn't get a whole lot of feedback on, but as we were looking at it just now, it's really a pretty fun blog post. You obviously did the story a few weeks ago on what minor league teams get confused for. The West Virginia Power, everybody thinks that's actually a power company, et cetera, et cetera. There are a lot of minor league teams that have Twitter handles that aren't necessarily what you would think maybe their Twitter handle would be. For example, the Quad Cities River Bandits are not just at River Bandits. They're at QC River Bandits, I think. But the at River Bandits handle belongs to a dude named David Greer, who on May 17th, 2011, when he was apparently 11 years old, according to his Twitter bio, he tweeted, quote, "Run 2 laps at practice," and he's never been heard from since. So maybe there will be like a podcast about what happened to David Greer. I don't know. But this is a whole post about minor league teams that you may confuse these Twitter handles for. This is really good.
Well, thank you. I wrote this post, and yeah, it came about as a function because I'm always, more so than the average person, or more so than maybe any person, I'm going to minor league baseball team Twitter accounts to check in on various endeavors that they may be doing, and I often type in the wrong handle and get, and end up on some random Twitter page where the user just happened to use the name of a minor league baseball team. So I decided to have some fun with that. But I wrote that post a few days ago, published it. I tweeted out a link to it. It got 0 likes, 0 retweets, 0 responses. I have no applause on Medium on the post itself. And as confident as I may come across at times, it's all a ruse. And I just felt that it was a bad idea and everyone hated it. And it was only your guys' support right now that is even causing me to talk about this, because I was just ready to sweep it in the dustbin of history.
So this is your please clap moment, basically.
It is. It is.
It is very good, though.
Thank you. Well, I'm asking you guys and any listeners to check that blog post out and tweet it yourselves. And maybe we'll get a second lease on life and I'll feel better about myself.
And try to get some of these names back, for crying out loud. Like, who should be having Rawhide?
Right. There's got to be some sort of statute of limitations. And Twitter, as we know, is the worst thing on earth. But like the @FlyingSquirrels handle hasn't tweeted since October 29th, 2008. And I'm actually jealous of this person because their only tweets are over a 6-day span where they were just traveling in Europe. And so I'm jealous of that. But like, if you haven't tweeted in 9.5 years, you should, come on. You can't just sit on that name.
I agree. At Rawhide is a Swedish guy who tweeted once to his friend to say, hey.
It's like, nah, this Twitter thing's not for me.
It's not for me.
Call me back when they get to 280 characters.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
It's pretty good. These are all pretty good. I am somewhat surprised that the @BabyCakes handle was somebody had that presumably before the New Orleans Baby Cakes even came into existence.
Oh, they definitely did, yeah.
I don't know. And the @Biscuits handle, the tweet itself was so old that Ben embedded that you couldn't even embed that tweet. He had to just screenshot it and post it, and it's just a tweet from @Biscuits that says boring from April 15th of 2007. So long ago that I was still in college. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. I didn't even know Twitter existed then, but there was a man with an account @Biscuits.
I was a junior in high school, and Twitter was not a thing back then.
I remember I had one professor in college. Oh, Ben was holding down the early, not even full-fledged Ben's Biz back then, right?
Well, I had Ben's Biz blog that started in 2007.
Okay, so it was
I was a young prepubescent Ben's Biz then.
I was I had one professor my senior year of college who had Twitter, and I remember thinking like that thing will never catch on, and now here we are. There's a story coming up tomorrow, and if you're listening to this, it's up on the site right now. Ben highlighted some of the highest attendance increases in minor league baseball from 2017. Give us a little preview of that story.
Right. Well, I did a story last year on teams that set attendance records in 2016, and I was going to do the same format this year, but there was kind of a lot of overlap, surprisingly, with the same teams just setting the record again. So I didn't want to rewrite the same story. So this year's article is the 10 teams with the biggest per game attendance increase in 2017 over 2016. And I did this article. It's kind of inspired by and with the help of a man by the name of David Kronheim. I've never said his name before. I'm sorry, David. But his alias is The Number Tamer. And he releases very detailed minor league baseball attendance reports every year. Check it out at thenumbertamer.com or just numbertamer.com if you're interested in really breaking down minor league attendance. So with the help of his report, I put an article together on the 10 biggest per game attendance gainers in minor league baseball last year. And number one is a team that you just would not think, because it's a team that was in their third year at a new ballpark. And, no rebranding, nothing drastic. But the Nashville Sounds increased by 1,762 fans in 2017 as compared to 2016 for the biggest increase in all of minor league baseball. And, I got some quotes from Adam Noose, the team's GM, and he said, we put an emphasis on group sales and, try to make ourselves, the most hospitable group area in Nashville, and that's how we can set ourselves apart from the Tennessee Titans, the Nashville Predators. But each of these 10 teams has their own story. Columbia and St. Lucie have an overlapping story in that their per game increases were at least somewhat tied into having Tim Tebow on the roster. We have two teams on the list, Binghamton and Jacksonville, that rebranded, so I think that explains some of it. But then you have teams like Potomac, who've been around in that market for 40 years, and they played at an old ballpark. But they increased 815 per game for one of the highest increases in all of minor league baseball. So if you like this kind of information, I don't know why I'm banging my fist on the desk. Sorry. Check it out on MILB.com. It's a pretty detailed article, and you will laugh and you will cry, and you'll do neither of those things in actuality, but you will learn something, and that's really my goal. Thank you.
And Ben, we'll kind of wrap it up with just some quick news that's going around in terms of ballpark stuff, starting in Rochester. The Red Wings signed a new lease, beating March 1st deadline to stay where they are.
Yeah, this seemed like a preordained conclusion, but things got kind of tense. Frontier Field in Rochester is owned by Monroe County, by the county, and the team and the county, had some trouble coming to terms on a lease agreement. It got so to the wire that the International League got involved. Deadlines were set. There was talks about a contingency schedule if the Red Wings and the county couldn't get it done. But all's well that ends well, and they have a 10-year lease extension, pretty much good to go at this point, and that makes a lot of sense for all parties because the Rochester the Red Wings are one of the longest running organizations in all of minor league baseball, really deep rooted in the community. Frontier Field is their home. It just makes sense for them to be there, and it's good to see that got worked out. Not without some drama, but all's well that ends well, as I said.
The blog is bensbiz.mlblogs.com. You can check out the story on the site, milb.com, and on Twitter, Ben is at bensbiz. At Ben Hill, by the way, a suspended account. What do you know, Ben?
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about what my personal account at Ben Hill did to get suspended. We'll save that story for another time. What I would like to know, we're taping on Valentine's Day. Tyler or Sam, do you guys have any Valentine's Day plans?
I am going to a bowling alley. So
that's fun.
Yeah.
All right.
With anyone special, Sam?
That's something for off the podcast.
All right, he keeps things close to the vest. Tyler, do you have any Valentine's
I'll be
Day?
broadcasting a college basketball game. Not very romantic at all.
All right, we have bowling and basketball on Valentine's Day.
What are you doing, Ben?
I'm going to go out with a friend of mine.
Okay. A female friend? A lady friend? A girlfriend? Also off the podcast? Is that what I'm
now
gathering?
it's just bumper music. Now we just got to the thing.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, I promise I'm not recording. Who are you spending Valentine's Day with, Sam?
You don't get me that way. I'm sorry.
Dang
You
it.
counted down. I know
Man.
not to say anything. Once you say one, I know the green light is on. As much
You know
as
that we're now officially on the record.
Yeah,
as they
no, that's
say.
okay.
There is no actual off the record, young journalists, in case one day you want to break a big story of your own. Just keep it in mind. Legally,
Have you ever had that? Have you
there
ever
is no
had,
off the
like,
record.
A player tried to say, I'd like to go off the record now?
I never had a player. I did have, there was a controversial story that we wrote for MILB.com a few years ago about an incident in Boise, Idaho, involving a former highly touted Mariners prospect. I did have a game official from that game after the fact get cold feet and say, I don't want my name associated with this after the story had been published. And that was kind of a dicey situation. And we came to an understanding and everything was fine. But yeah, if you're a young journalist, you know, it's you're covered in that regard, but it's always good to make sure with somebody, okay, are you okay with being on the record with your name being used, etc. And that was the case. But sometimes people will say, you know, I'm not so sure about this after the fact, and then you kind of got to have the conversation, and everything turned out fine. But that was an interesting. I think that's the first and might be the only time in which that's happened to me. But I think it's more, it comes at you from an administrative point of view, where people talk about something that they don't necessarily want, you know, themselves being publicized with. And we don't cover a lot of real controversial topics, but even, you know, for example, the uniform stuff that I've been writing about, every once in a while you'll get somebody to say, like, some of this information is proprietary, you know, so we'd rather not have it in the story because it's, you know, things that are being worked on that aren't necessarily out in the public eye yet or haven't been released for public consumption yet. So it's kind of interesting. It makes me feel like a real journalist, which, I mean, if anybody has met me, I'm like the farthest thing from professional that there is. So it's kind of fun sometimes when I feel like, oh yeah, I'm a real hard worker.
Yeah, no, I mean, you are a real hard worker.
Ah, thanks, buddy.
You have many jobs that would fall under real journalists. Don't get too hard on yourself.
All this love on the Minor League Baseball Valentine's Day podcast.
I know there's something about February 14th, I guess.
What about you?
The closest I've come was once a player just decided, like, hey, can we go off the record, and just talked about when his injury happened.
Okay.
And I was like, that's not really against anything. Like, that's
right.
not going to, you know, and so you just have to be a human being in instances like that. And you just talk to him and be like, listen, it makes my story better if I have this. It's not going to hurt you at all.
This isn't going to, yeah, exactly. This isn't going to actually do anything to harm you in any way.
Right.
And I've noticed too, a lot of players, young players tend to be, and understandably so, tend to be a lot more hesitant in interviews because they don't want to push any, you know, wrong buttons with an organization if they're talking about an injury or if they're talking about, you know, even something like playing time or a position where they're being tried for something like that. But it's interesting because sometimes you'll get guys on the other side, and you and I have both spoken with this guy, and he's never afraid to say what's on his mind. But I remember a couple years ago talking with Brent Honeywell when he was in the Arizona Fall League and said, you know, right off the bat, out of the gate, I don't really know why they sent me here. Nobody gave me any information as to what I'm supposed to be working on or anything. So I'm down here trying to get better, but I'm not really entirely sure why they sent me here. And I thought that was interesting because it was one of those things you kind of would have figured somebody would have been like, you know, I don't really want this in the story, but I didn't really get real guidance right out of the chute on what exactly is going on here. But I thought that was really interesting. And Brent Honeywell is just such a cool dude. He's such an interesting, introspective athlete. And I think the Rays just love in him that he's like, why hasn't anybody told me anything to be working on? I want to be working on something constantly. Like, I think that's a positive.
Yeah, no, definitely a positive. Also, I bet they probably trusted him to know what he
right,
needed.
exactly. Like, you're smart, kind of you know what we want from you, and we're gonna.
We just
and
want
it was
you to get
probably right, and it was probably something somewhat intentional that the Rays were like, you know what? Let's send him down there. Don't tell him what exactly we want him to be working on, and see what he does. You know, put the guy in the maze on his own, see if he can figure out his way out. Like, I think that's a test in and of itself. And with somebody that self-aware and that talented, you know, Brent Honeywell is going to be a major league pitcher this year, and there's a reason for it. So
yeah, and as long as we're getting in journalism weed stories, I just want to tell this other one real fast. I did a story once at a spring training. I won't actually say who this is, but it was somebody. You know, I don't think he really spoke to the media that much. He was an executive. You know, got everything on the record. It was pretty good. I wrote a story. The next day, he reached out through LinkedIn
Oh, really?
Yeah, asking if his quotes could be taken off the record. Same deal.
Interesting.
Story had already published. It was fine. And I told him that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I've already written the story.
Right,
And I
right.
don't think anything about it was that tough.
Right. And there's not really anything we can do. I mean, once something is out there that's been published, it's kind of, our hands are sort of tied at that point.
Right. So his response was actually, I reread the story, and I feel like you quoted me accurately and in the correct fashion and all that, and
Interesting.
take back what I said. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm a professional.
Right, exactly. This is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really interesting. Yeah, and I have had, I've gotten people that I'll do an interview with somebody and then they'll text me after the interview and say like, hey, just off the record, here's some additional information that you can use for context or whatever. Most organizations are very, very wary of discussing injuries, and that's somewhat understandable. I think sometimes you do bang your head against the wall a little bit when it seems to be a situation which there's nothing really to be gained or lost by an organization talking about an injury. If a guy is injured and he's out for the year, an organization not acknowledging that a guy is injured and out for the year doesn't change the fact that he's injured and out for the year. I've never really understood that, the tight-lipped, kind of concern that goes into that. But at the same time, I don't have the money invested in these guys. I'm not paying their salaries. I'm not dealing with their insurance, all that type of stuff. So I'm sure there are good reasons behind those decisions that are made, and those are the most understandable things. When it comes to somebody's health or whatever, I'm very understanding of the fact that sometimes you don't want to discuss that. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's a really interesting world of what exactly is just perfectly public fodder for conversation, and sometimes what some organizations or athletes or coaches or administrators or executive think like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to go full bore with this.
Right. Well, I'll end it on this one before we turn this into a journalism podcast.
Yeah,
which we
I
very
know.
Well could do.
We literally we started going into this segment by both of us saying, I don't have anything to talk about to finish.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Well, I think, again, going back to your point about talking to young guys who can get kind of skittish, also, I think a lot of people have watched journalism movies now. Like, It's kind of like Law and Order. Like, once you start watching Law and Order, you assume you know what it works or how a courtroom works. So you just yell objection and you're fine. It's like, that's not how this works. There's actually rules.
Right. There are rules.
So people just being like, oh, they go off the record all the time in these things. That's fine.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not how the real world works.
No.
So I don't care how many times you've seen The Post or Spotlight. Excellent movies, all of them, All the President's Men, yada, yada, yada.
However,
you're dealing with humans in the real world on the other side.
Yeah.
And we have our own rules that we go by. So
yeah, and there are no rules here. This is the world of
That's what journalism school
baseball,
taught us. There are no rules.
Yeah. It's
4
funny
years
too
later,
because
they gave us a degree.
I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day about the concept of media as the antagonist. Obviously on a world level has gotten to be a whole different ball of wax that we're not going to talk about. But in sports, that's kind of always been the way. It's always the press is out to get us. It's us against the world, blah, blah, blah. And I think athletes now adopt that at a very young age. I think athletes adopt that coming up thinking maybe this will benefit me too if I also take on this me against the world mentality. When you're a low-level prospect or you're playing at a small school, if you're playing collegiate athletics or whatever it is, nobody's out to get you. Nobody's out to get you when you're climbing the ladder through the minor leagues. Nobody's out to get you when you're, if you're plying your trade as a guy who's, either a college athlete or you're an independent ball or whatever it is. Like, we're trying to do a job too. And that's one of the things that I'm most thankful for in the minor leagues is you so rarely run into anybody who is skeptical of you or thinks that you have some weird ulterior motive, because I think those guys kind of recognize a counterpoint in us of like, these people are just trying to do their jobs too. They're just trying to tell the story of like, how has your curveball developed over the offseason? They're not out there writing something salacious about something that you have no idea going into an interview is going to end up coming out of it. And that's, somebody asked me the other day, what do you like about working in the minor leagues? That's one of the things that I really like about it. People are so real. Prospects are real. Coaches are real. Executives and people in player development for the most part are very real. Scouts are that way. I really like that about minor league baseball. These guys are still very much in the mode of people who treat you as people. You're doing a job, they're doing a job, you both get it about each other. I've always really appreciated that.
Yeah, and there are guys in the majors who are that respectful as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's not to say that everybody in the major leagues is a jerk, because that's not the case either.
No, not at all. But there is a sense to it of a little bit more of community in the minors than necessarily in the majors, where everything kind of becomes sterilized and the velvet ropes kind of get put up of when you can do things, when you can't do things, all that stuff. It's a little bit more freeing to work in the minors for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, man, this took an unexpected and fun turn at the end.
I'll
take how formative we are.
Yeah. We'll have to do this every couple weeks. Just check in on our minor league journalism ethics.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do
ethics corner.
And neither of us went to Northwestern, so we can't even act that arrogant about it. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Show Before the Show podcast. Our big thanks to Corbin Burnes for joining the show, Benjamin Hill as well. He's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Maun. We'll talk to you next week.